Good evening, everyone. My name's Eduardo Fernandez. I'm the Community Health Education Coordinator for Parkinson's Resources of Oregon. Thank you so much for being here this evening for our talk, Navigating End of Life for folks with Parkinson's. And this topic is a challenging and important one, and we hope that you'll take the time to consider what your wishes, your values, and your goals are. This will bring you great peace of mind for you and your loved ones. And we have a wonderful speaker tonight, Angela Franklin. Before I introduce Angela, I would just like to go over some housekeeping items. First, wanted to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted onto YouTube probably in a week or so, so you can review it or clarify anything that you missed during the talk. Um, your mic and visual is muted for the webinar. However, we do encourage you to participate by asking questions in the chat. We will save some time at the end of this presentation for Q&A. We'll do that in the order that questions are presented, and the Q&A will start around 7:15. Also, my colleague Libby is online with me, and she's a co-host, and um, she's there in case my computer has a glitch and I go offline. She'll be able to take over the presentation. Um, All right. To introduce our speaker, Angela Franklin is an older adult behavioral specialist who brings compassion, experience, and deep community knowledge to help individuals and families navigate life's meaningful transitions. Her work focuses on supporting older adults and their loved ones through complex decisions, life changes, and conversations that can feel difficult to begin with. We're very grateful to have Angela here with us tonight to guide this discussion and help us to think about end of life planning in a thoughtful and supportive way. Please join me in welcoming Angela Franklin.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get my slides pulled up, arrange things. There we go. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this presentation. Eduardo said that I'm an older adult behavioral health specialist with Oregon. I'll talk about that in a little bit. My background is a death midwife or end of life doula, and we'll talk about that role later in the presentation also. So what we're going to look at is my older adult behavioral health role is part of a statewide initiative that the Oregon Health Authority funds. There is 24 specialists across the state, and every county has an older adult specialist that's attached to it. So if you want to find out who your older adult specialist is, you can go to our website, oregonbhi.org. And we are such a good resource for older adults. And when I say older adults, we think of people 55 and up as possibly the age where we would be helpful. So we do collaborations and coordination. We help build community knowledge and professional workforce knowledge, and we provide complex care consultations. Okay, so tonight what we're going to learn is our foundational advanced care planning and why it's needed. We'll talk about different end-of-life supports. A number of you submitted questions around medical aid in dying, and so we'll talk about aid in dying. And then we will end with some thoughts and reflections around how to cultivate a relationship with death and our own mortality. So we also will have a number of resources for you. And then I want to just let everyone know that I am not going to be providing any sort of legal advice. And when it comes to financial planning, it is really important to involve a legal professional. I've personally have seen lots of things kind of happen, mishaps, missed, things that turn estate planning kind of sideways. So I really want people to know that go ahead and reach out to legal professionals when it comes to wills, estate planning, any of the financial aspect. So tonight we will be talking mostly about our healthcare decisions, planning, conversations, and our own relationship around death and mortality. Okay, so what is advanced care planning? So advanced care planning is more than just the forms and documents. So I see it as 4 different things. So the first thing is you have to do the exploration about what matters most to you. You need to have the information to make informed decisions and preferences. We also, to do that, we need to have conversations with our appointed decision makers, with our family, with our chosen family and our support team, and our health professionals. And then the forms and documents are a great way to make sure that we have that down and recorded, and also giving us some legal backing to make sure that the people we want making these decisions are in fact the people who are making the decisions for us when we're unable to. And then the last thing is life story. So this is a new thing that we're adding, and this is something that I have worked and identified with a dementia trainer and caregiver that we feel is really important for anyone that is going to live with a serious illness, especially one that is a progressive terminal illness. So I will go a little bit into what that life story looks like. So advanced care planning is really important because Parkinson's can affect cognition and motor skills, making it difficult for individuals to communicate their wishes, possibly as it progresses. We also want to make sure that we do early planning so that we don't wait until it's too late. And so having these early decisions that we can revisit over time. So the earlier the better. It just means that usually we're going to be revisiting these things as our new normals kind of occur. We want to ensure that our wishes are respected and that they align with our values and preferences. And then we want to reduce the burden on our family and our caregivers by having clear instructions and directives. Telling someone, oh, you know what you need to do is not helpful. And so we want to make sure that we have as much laid out in front of us so that it is not as a difficult or messy of a task as we move along through our disease progression. So the current culture of advanced care planning is not really beneficial. So healthcare providers are the ones that we typically go to. We go to our doctors to have these conversations, but a lot of healthcare providers don't initiate advanced care planning conversations. They don't typically have time to have the extensive kind of exploration and conversations. And we oftentimes don't necessarily have our decision makers with us at our doctor's appointments always. And so, and we've also found that sometimes doctors don't even have a clear understanding of all of what advanced care planning looks like. So that is one reason why coming to this class is super awesome, because you are going to be able to come to your healthcare provider with kind of the work done. So that shorter doctor's appointment will be you do all the footwork. And so you can go and just be like, this is what I want to ask you and what I want to go over. Also, culturally, we have tied advanced directives to estate planning. And so we have like those packages that will go to our estate or elder law attorneys, and they will have a package that says, like, we'll do your advance directive, we'll do your will or your trust or whatever else all at once. And lawyers and attorneys are also don't have the time or have the ability to really have those exploration conversations and to invite decision makers into it. So it's not going to create the ongoing conversation and process. And then also it creates, economic disparities, because not everyone can afford to go to an attorney. Okay, so we have a few different advanced care planning forms that we're going to learn about tonight. And we are going to look at advanced directives, which are where you can choose what kind of medical treatment you do or do not want to have if you are terminally ill, you have an advanced progressive illness, or you're permanently unconscious. It also allows you to express your general values and hopes and concerns. In Oregon, we have an advanced directive that the state puts out every 5 years. And so if you just Google Oregon Advanced Directive, you might come up with like 3 different advanced directives. And any of them will be valid, but the one that I kind of want people to utilize is the one the state puts out, because that's the one that we know has been revised, and it has a whole beautiful second section with open-ended questions that allows you to write down a lot of things around, like, what are your spiritual beliefs? What is your care? What do you want it to look like? It's not just a checklist. And we want to not treat advanced directives as just a checklist of treatment options. We want to utilize it in the best way possible. Okay, so our second one is a POLST. That's where we choose whether or not we want to receive CPR and what level of medical intervention we would like. And so that looks like full, selective, or comfort focused. This is something that we'll go into a little bit more detail on the next slide. We also have the ability to create a dementia addendum. And so we don't have one that just stands alone in Oregon, but it's something that in the Oregon Advanced Directive, later in the directive, it has a section where you can say, do you want to list any other documents to be included in your advanced directive? And in that section, if you write, yes, I have a dementia addendum, then you attach that addendum to your advanced directive and it becomes part of your advanced directive. It doesn't stand on its own. It has to be included in your advanced directive and documented within it. So that dementia addendum is something that a person living with Parkinson's could utilize. We don't have a Parkinson's addendum or a directive. I mean, that's hopefully might be one day Parkinson's Resources of Oregon will help create that. But because Parkinson's is progressive like dementia, we can sometimes utilize the dementia addendum for someone with Parkinson's because of that progressive stage um, that people go through. So we'll talk about that. And then we will talk about after death care directive. This is a way to document what you want after your death. Talking about your final disposition, which means what you want to be done with your body. And if you want any sort of personalized ceremonies or rituals, and to identify the people that could help you with those things, including if you have a funeral home or if you want to do a home funeral, even in Oregon, we can do that. So you can, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay. And then at the very bottom here, I just want to make a note. So we have a lot of language around healthcare directives. And so some people will say power of attorney. Some people will say a living will. Some people will say a advance directive. So we're pretty much talking about the same thing, but just with different words. But we do have what is called a healthcare power of attorney, which is just a very kind of generic form where you can give someone, appoint a person to be your power of attorney over healthcare, but it only kicks in when you cannot communicate. It doesn't give you any ability to like write down your values, your hopes. It doesn't have the different scenarios that a healthcare directive has. It's just a very simple, if I can't communicate, this person can communicate for me. So in that case, if someone already has a healthcare power of attorney, the advance directive, if you fill that one out as well, it will override that healthcare power of attorney. So just know that the Oregon advance directive for healthcare will override a general healthcare power of attorney. Okay. So I like to spend a little bit of time educating people about the difference between an advance directive and a post. And so we have here a side-by-side kind of look. So the post you'll see has I have a little picture of it. It has the pink border around it. It used to be all pink, but they've realized that it's really hard to write on an all pink document or read it when you do copies. So a brilliant person decided just to put it around the border so it's easier to read and write on. So we have a post, and that stands for a physician's orders for life-sustaining treatment. It also could be portable orders for life-sustaining treatment. And why it says that it's portable is because it was birthed out of the DNR, which is the do not resuscitate. So when you go to a hospital, you have the ability upon entry to the hospital or before a procedure to sign a DNR that says do not resuscitate or do not intubate. But that is only for that specific procedure, or that once you get discharged, it goes away. If you have to go to another facility, you have to do another one. And as soon as you leave that facility, it goes away. And then if you have to get transferred like OHSU, then you have to do another one. And then when you get discharged, it goes away. So they created this pulse as a way to have a medical order for a do not resuscitate or resuscitate, and what level of medical intervention you would like that will follow you anywhere in Oregon. Now, this medical order is only for those who are seriously ill or have advanced frailty. So a doctor will not sign off on a pulse if you are a healthy individual. Anyone can have a DNR for that specific hospital stay, but for a pulse to follow you, it has to have a signed off, and you have to have a serious illness or advanced frailty. Basically, a condition that your heart might stop. You might stop breathing. You might have an event. And it has to be signed by a medical provider, an MD or a DO, a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, or a naturopathic doctor. Those are the only people who can sign off on a pulse. And this is something that is utilized by emergency medical services, paramedics, and hospitals. So it's the only way that you would not have CPR attempted on you, because the default is to do everything possible. So if you don't have a pulse, no matter what your physical state is, they're going to do everything possible to keep you, try to stabilize you to get you to the hospital. And so that's why this is important for people. So if you want CPR, you want to be resuscitated, a pulse isn't that important. It's really important for the people who do not want to have CPR. Okay, so an advanced care directive is not a medical order, it is a legal document. So anyone 18 years and older can fill out a advanced care directive. And it is something that lists 3 different scenarios. If you have a terminal illness, if you have a progressive illness, or if you are unconscious. So those are the 3 different scenarios, and they ask you for each one of those what level of intervention you would like. It also allows you to appoint a substitute decision maker and 2 alternatives. So you can choose someone to be your decision maker. So it also needs to be witnessed by 2 people, and they can't be related to you. They can't be people giving you medical care, and they can't be people who would benefit from your death. So someone who like is listed on your will, they can't witness this document. You can also get it notarized, and that is typically available at your bank, and people who are not physically able to go to notary. Oftentimes you can find mobile notaries that will actually come to your home and provide that service for you for a fee. So advanced care directives are utilized by your appointed decision makers, but also utilized by your hospitals and care providers when you're unable to communicate. So both of these forms are only valid in the state that they originated from. So if you live in 2 separate places during the year, you have to get one in each of those places. And so there's a number of people that I know that like will live part-time, maybe in a more sunny, warm place during the winter. So if you split your time, you need to do your research and get one for that state that you reside in also. Okay, so one other thing, if you have an advance directive filled out and notarized and submitted, and you submit it to the medical records of the hospital that is closest to you. And so you can think of it this way. If I had a medical event at my home, where would the ambulance take me? That's one medical records that you need to submit. And if I had to be life flighted from somewhere, was that a different hospital system? Because we think that hospitals communicate to each other, they don't very smoothly or quickly. So we want to do that work for them and just submit to as many different places. And you can just either mail it to the medical records department of a hospital, or sometimes they have an email that you can find, and you can email a copy to them and they'll submit it to your medical records. Okay. So I'm trying to think if there's, oh, in our post, we have a state registry. So your medical provider will be doing the one to submit it for you. And so they will submit it to our Oregon Pulse registry. And about 2 weeks after they do that, you'll receive a letter in the mail that gives you a little magnet to put on your refrigerator and some bright pink stickers to put on your wallet or your ID, so that paramedics are trained to like look for these things when they are arriving to either a person's home or out in the community before they do any sort of life-sustaining treatment. Okay, so appointing decision makers, I like letting people know that your default decision makers, if you don't have anything in place, that there is a hierarchy that legally they go through. So next of kin is your legal decision maker. So if you have a spouse or a domestic partner, they are first in line. If you don't have a spouse or a domestic partner, then it's your adult children. And they typically will try to get like a majority from your adult children to go with that. Parents, and then it goes to siblings, and then it goes to grandparents, then it goes to aunts and uncles, then it goes to cousins. And then if none of those are found, then sometimes they will take like a close friend. But often if there's no one that they can find, then each hospital has an ethics committee. And so the hospital will then bring it to the ethics committee and kind of come together and try to figure out like what's the best way forward. So it's really important that those who are aging alone for any reason or don't foresee any support of any kind from the family to have your chosen people be your decision makers, especially if you're estranged from your legal next of kin. So it's really important to make sure that they have the legal ability to help make your decisions when you can't communicate yourself. Because all of this only comes into place when you cannot communicate or you are deemed without decision-making capacity. And we'll talk about what are the levels or what are the things that come into consideration when someone may not have decision-making capacity anymore. So it's really important to find the right people to carry out your wishes. So you're a decision maker. A lot of times people are like, they just choose like their family and they're like, oh, well, my spouse or my partner or my kids. You don't have to choose your family. You can choose anyone. And sometimes it's good to have your decision maker be like your most outspoken, most stubborn, most proactive friend or community member. So it doesn't have to be your family or your, next of kin. So just keep that in mind. Like, who would be good to do this? Because one, they need to be able to talk with you about your goals, values, and preferences. So if you have family members that are like avoiding the conversation, they may not be the best people to take on this role. If they need to be able to follow your lead, because we know that capacity fluctuates. It's not um, a static thing. So if someone starts to have cognitive impairments, it may be that you are more clear during the morning than the evening, or you have good days, you have bad days. So we need someone to understand that capacity fluctuates and to follow our lead. We also need to have someone to follow your medical intervention decisions, even if they don't agree with them. So who is that person in your life that will be able to hold that for you? They need to be able to advocate on your behalf and make decisions in difficult moments. So this can be a really hard decision for people. And sometimes people don't have anyone. They don't have family that they feel like could hold this role. They may not have a lot of supports around them. So in those cases, go ahead and fill out your advance directive. Write as much as you can down, because even without a representative or a default decision maker, that advance directive is still information for your care providers, and they're supposed to follow it. So that is information for them to use when making decisions when there is no um, representative available. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. Who gets a copy of your advance directive? You want to make sure that your decision makers have a copy. You keep the original. Uh, your primary care physician can get a copy of it, but then you need to not expect that that primary care physician is going to give a copy over to the hospital or the ER. So just do that yourself and submit your own copy to the medical records. And then also you can find wallet cards online that say, like I have an advance directive, this is where you can find it, this is my decision maker. So you can keep that in your wallet just in case of like accidents. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about people living with dementia, and because cognitive impairment is a symptom of Parkinson's, can be a symptom of Parkinson's. And so we want to, kind of utilize this as a way to think about how advanced care planning can change with a progressive illness. So dementia is one of the most common reasons people lose their ability to guide their own care. And I talked about before, capacity is not a static state, it fluctuates, and every day is unique. So we need to think about a decision-making continuum instead of thinking about, I don't have legal decision-making capacity anymore, so that means that someone's just making all my decisions for me. That's not what we're working towards. We're working towards having our decision makers follow our lead and providing a supportive decision making role rather than just complete substitute decision making. We want to know that, people can lose their ability to speak, eat, and walk. This is true for both Parkinson's and dementia. And this process can take, over a long period of time or a shorter period of time. So that early planning is really important. So dementia addendum is something that you can add to your advance directive. And there is, at the end of this presentation, I have links, and you'll be getting sent these slides. And so you'll have these slides and any of the resources that I talk about. Pro will send those out to all of you and make them available. So dementia addendum is important because it provides additional instructions based on stages and progression. So mild, moderate, advanced. And some of the unique things that can be added in a dementia addendum are things like instructions about dealing with combative, assaultive, or aggressive behaviors. Not everyone who has a dementia shows, expresses in this way, but sometimes it happens. We can also talk about preferences regarding the financing of care, preferences regarding future intimate relationships. Sometimes when people have to go into a higher level of care and go into assisted living or even memory care facilities, relationships can form in those facilities. So it's good to talk about that ahead of time. And then also, the partner who is not in that higher level of care, sometimes feelings and relationships develop as well. So it's just good to kind of talk about this before it becomes a really big source of like shame and guilt. And we want to, kind of breach these uncomfortable conversations ahead of time. And then also consent to participate in experimental drug trials. So that's something that is just good to have conversations with our family and our partners or care team on, what you would consider is okay and what's not. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the life story aspect. So life story is a really important component of advanced care planning that we don't talk about a lot. So the importance is if you if you don't have the ability to communicate to your caregivers a lot of information just about who you are, it's hard to maybe make sure that your quality of life is where you want it. And so we decided to come up with some questions around what would be beneficial for, a professional caregiver to know about that's coming into your home, or a caregiver if you go into a higher level of care. Like what would be good for those caregivers to know to kind of, to find out things about you. And this came from, a memory care caregiver who had to do a lot of like investigation on their own to kind of figure out who are these folks. So if you don't come with an instruction book, then it's good to kind of provide a little bit of an idea of things around you. So some of the things are like, who are you? Names, nicknames, so that we know what you like to be called. How would you describe yourself? That's a good thing because the way other people describe you might be different from the way that you describe yourself. Things of what makes you you. What is your art? So do you like animals? Do you like helping others? Do you like a tidy or a messy house? Do you like cooking, sewing? Are you good with numbers? What are the activities that you like to do? Painting, music, singing, being outdoors. Like these are all things that if a caregiver knew about you, they could come up with like some really cool activities and know, how best to like spend days with folks. Also, what's your favorite foods, color, your favorite memory, songs, um, jobs you had, your best time of the year. These are just all really great things to know. And your daily routine. So if you can't communicate to someone about these different things, you might get frustrated. And we want to, uh, yeah, get as much information as possible. So, like, what typically time do you like to wake up? How do you like to wake up? Shower, bathing times, meal times. So, if someone is having difficulty eating, uh, maybe knowing what meal is their favorite meal is kind of like the time where we're going to put our most focus on to make sure that that time of day, that meal is the one that we try to to work with them the most. um, Different things like bedtimes, when do you like to relax, and then when you get upset, like, how do you calm yourself down? If someone else needed to help you calm down, what would be the best way? What would be the worst way for someone to help you calm down? So this life story is not necessarily like the pretty life review legacy project that you want people to like remember you after you die. So there's like, those books that you can say like, I want people to remember me and I have all these different questions. Those are really great. And those are useful. But this is also more of like the practical stuff of like, if I was a caregiver, like what would they need to know about me? So when we get upset, also traumas and phobias, what can trigger them? What's the best way to help you when you are feeling activated? Um, it's a really good thing to know about someone. So make an outline of your life story, write it out, what's important, useful information. And we want to share this with our decision makers and the important people with our life so that they can then have it available for caregivers and different people. I will include a PDF of a toolkit that I created with the dementia trainer that can be utilized for you all. So even if it says people living with dementia, it can also be utilized for people living with Parkinson's. Um, and yeah, okay. So we want to make sure that we are doing person-centered support when we are supporting someone living with Parkinson's, living with cognitive impairment, um, and also with physical impairments. And so with Parkinson's, we know that sometimes some parts of the days are more rough than others. And so that possible fluctuation in capacity and cognition is good to think about, but also our physical capacity can change throughout the day. Uh, I know when I have supported people who have Parkinson's, yeah, like the time leading up to medication might be a difficult time, and then waiting for things to kick in. So we want to recognize that um, advanced care planning is not a one-time get everything done at once. It's unrealistic. So what we need to do is we need to allow ample time over several meetings to kind of chip away at this process with people. We want to also, when it comes to decision making, we want to be able to recognize different articulations of wishes through gestures and nonverbal actions or emotions when verbal communication is not happening. We know that we're going to have to repeat information, and the supportive decision making is really important. And so sometimes people ask, like, what is decision making capacity? Like, when do we know when we may not have that anymore? So these are 4 things that a professional and a judge are going to take in consideration. And so the first thing is they're going to look at, can the person understand and appreciate the relevant information? Can they retain that information long enough to use it in making a choice? Can they weigh the information in making a choice? And then also, can they communicate their choice in some way? So these are the 4 things that you have to kind of hit and be able to do to retain your decision-making capacity. And capacity and and consent is something that a professional, a doctor, is going to have to provide documentation, and then you can even then have it go to a legal setting in a court to, kind of make that final determination that someone doesn't have decision-making capacity. And that's when a guardian can come into play, either a private guardian or a public guardian sometimes. And oftentimes, if you don't have decision-making capacity, they'll try to look for a family member to, take on that guardianship before they look at any other ways. Okay, so the decision-making continuum, this is, we talked about it before. So we have independent decision making, then we have supportive decision making, where maybe someone needs a little bit of help in making decisions. And then we have substitute decision making. So that's when someone is making choices for the person. So we always want to try to be supportive decision making people, to where we will include the person as much as possible. Even when we legally have the right to be their substitute decision maker, we still want to try to be included. And there's a lot of fear that people have around losing their decision making capacity, and kind of just having to go with whatever the other person, feels is what is necessary or right. So, okay. So we are going to go into a little bit, let's see, this is our last thing before we go into a little bit more of the possible after death stuff. So before filling out the forms, some of the questions that are good to go over are, what is your and the person's understanding of advanced directives and PULSE? So we might need to have a little bit of education happening. Do they have any fears or concerns around advanced care planning? What supports do they have? Who is legal next of kin? So if you are not married, if you are married but maybe separated or not divorced from someone, like, are they still your legal next of kin? If you are not married and you have a sister or a brother who lives far away, you haven't talked to them in years, you are totally different lifestyle and just beliefs, Are they your legal decision maker? So these are all, things to think about. We need to think, what conversations have happened? Have we talked to our family? Have we talked to our medical providers? Um, does the person have an understanding of their medical condition? What are they hoping for? And that hope is going to change as the disease progresses. So early on, you might hope for, uh, a medication that is going to be able to continue taking a medication. And then maybe at some point that medication is not, uh, doing what it used to do. So you might then have to, hope for something else, or you might get to a progression in your illness where, like we need to start thinking about certain things. And our hope is then to be able to spend more time with our family in a meaningful way. Our hope is that we can, um, have a level of care that is going to give us comfort as we enter into our more active dying time. So just the hopes are going to change as we progress. Uh, what does living well mean to you, to them? So yeah, what are the things like when you stop being able to do this? Like, what does that mean? What is living well? So if someone really likes being in their garden, if that is not able to happen, uh, what does that mean? Like, what is the next kind of thing that can help with quality of life? And then we always want to think about what our past hospital and serious illnesses experiences have been. Because a lot of our fears and our concerns are really based off of past experiences. And they're either our own experiences or being witness to someone else's like hospital or end of life experience. And what did we learn from that? So these are good discussions to have. And then also, what are cultural or spiritual beliefs? And that could be around decision making or end of life. What are the things that you want to have continued? Like if prayer is a really big part of your life, at what point would you want other people, like what prayers or things that you find comforting, would you want people to continue to do with you? Or what are the things that you absolutely do not want any sort of religiosity in my like sphere? So it's like it could be anything along that spectrum of wanting things and not wanting things. Okay, so a really good book that is a few years old now. It's called Hope for the Best, Plan for the Rest, 7 Keys to Navigating a Life-Changing Diagnosis. This is a really good resource. Um, and it goes through different ways to kind of be more in the know through your disease journey. And this could be its own workshop, and they are available. But there's a book and a workbook, and this really does help caregivers and individuals understand how to better navigate an illness. So you can find the Waiting Room Revolution is the what you could Google to find this book. Okay. So, advanced care planning for after death. So this is where we can do some preparation for our after death as well. So there's after death directives. And this, if you go to a funeral home, they'll usually have these like really beautiful fancy books that you can like write down your ceremony wishes in. You can also I will give you one that you can print out, and it's like a worksheet. It's nothing beautiful. So you can kind of use it, and then you can get yourself a nice pretty book if you want one. There is also a form that you can appoint someone to make your decisions concerning disposition. Uh, and also, we'll just talk about what happens if you don't have anything in place and you don't have any financial ability or family to kind of do any planning. Okay. So the appointing an after death decision maker for disposition, this is to ensure that chosen family or support persons have rights to pay for your disposition and make arrangements with a funeral home. So if you have a pre-need and you can do that ahead of time with a funeral home, awesome. So that is something that you go to a funeral home, you pay for them, and they will, do all the cremation, burial, um, aquamation, natural reduction. There are so many things in Oregon that you can do with your body after you die, and not just the typical burial or cremation. So maybe that'll come up in our Q&A section. This form only can be used once someone dies, because before someone dies, you have to have, it's a financial transaction. So you have to have power of attorney to do the financial planning with a funeral home before someone dies. But once the person dies, you can use this form, and you just need two people to witness, and you can name someone that can talk to the funeral home and make your arrangements for you. And this will trump someone who has your power of attorney. So this is when I first learned about this, when we were supporting someone who is estranged from their family. And their family, they were scared that the family was just going to take over and do everything that they probably wouldn't want done with their body after they died. And so when I reached out to the Oregon Cemetery and Mortuary Board and asked them, like, how can we get someone else besides our legal next of kin to be able to make these arrangements? And they said, this is the form that we created. So funeral homes have to abide because their governing body is the one who created this form. So you can say this trumps power of attorney. And if you have any questions, like, the mortuary board is who you need to talk to. Okay. So what happens to a person's body when nothing is in place? So if someone dies and they will, if there is no one that they can find, no one has any plans in place, we have on-call funeral homes in every county. So typically a number of funeral homes take turns, and they just rotate on a monthly or a 3-month rotation. And whoever's on call is the one that receives the body. If there's no one that they can find to pay for funeral preparations, then they will apply to the state for what's called the Indigent Funeral Fund, and they get a small stipend to reimburse for their services. And so basically, they have to see if any medical facilities, want a body donated. Most don't. And then the next thing is that you typically are cremated, because it is the least expensive thing for a funeral home to do. And so that person will be cremated. They will keep the ashes for I think they have to keep it for like at least 20 days. And if no one comes asking, then they will spread those ashes in a dignified, manner. It's not going to landfill. It's not getting disrespected. They are very good about that. So know that if you're a person that has nothing in place, your body will be tended to. So the state has a way of reimbursing funeral homes for providing those services. Okay. And that is what we just talked about. Okay. So I have here a list of kind of the good things to have in place with our advanced healthcare advanced directives, our advanced death care directive, a will or a trust, durable power of attorney for finance, life insurance policy information, bank account information, real estate, funeral pre-need documents, debitor information. It's always good to have a copy of your driver's license or social security card, copy of any marriage or divorce certificates. And then in this like death file, I suggest people like find like a pretty box that you can keep all of these documents in. And then also put in letters and notes to loved ones. Kind of like intermix in these documents the things that you want your people to like be kind of surprised with after you die, and have little notes, have things mixed in, because it's really a special gift. Even like thinking, seeing like my mom's handwriting, like I love that, to be able to like pull that out, or have a letter, written to me from someone who has died. We want to make sure that this death file is somewhere in your home where it can be easily found. One of the areas, any like important documents, you don't want to put them in a safety deposit box in a bank where no one knows how to access them. We One of the recommendations was to get like a waterproof, one of those plastic folders, and you can put that in your freezer. Because in case of a house fire or anything of that sort, like the freezer is kind of the last place that someone's going to look for it. And it could survive, a fire. Okay. So end of life supports. A lot of people don't really understand what palliative care is. So there is a difference between palliative care, which is symptom management of life-limiting illnesses. It's a pretty big area. And hospice care is a part of palliative care. So it's symptom management of terminal illnesses. So hospice is only when you are 6 months or less of a prognosis. And so when we look at the difference, we can see here that this orange triangle is the disease management area. And we can see that this lighter one is the palliative care. So palliative care has the symptom and pain management. And then some people will actually go into rehabilitation in palliative care and go into survivorship. Other people will have palliative care with the symptom and pain management, and they will go into hospice. And hospice is something that there are a few people that actually will, what they call, graduate from hospice, which will bump them back into the symptom and pain management out of hospice, but eventually they'll go back into hospice. And then that, the trajectory of that is death. And so hospice is 6 months or less when someone uh, is having a terminal illness, or they're at the end of a longer serious illness in the later stages. So the thing to remember is that all hospice is palliative care, but not all palliative care is hospice. And you can ask your doctor to have a palliative care consult. And so palliative care doctors, it's really a team of people. So our healthcare is so fragmented. We have a specialist here, we have another specialist here. All of them are giving maybe different medications, different care plans, uh, and a lot of times they are not talking to each other. And a palliative care team, to get a consult, they will look at everything. They will look at all of your specialists, all of your records, and really work to improve your quality of life, which is largely symptom and pain management. And so they work alongside your existing doctors. They don't take over, but they are able to work alongside them. Not every county has a lot of palliative care available. Some counties like only have hospice. So it's good to find out what palliative care looks like in your county, hospice wise, and then outside of hospice, that non 6 month or less, but the life limiting illness. So Parkinson's, um, it would be great if you want to talk to your doctor. If you have enough symptoms and enough, other things going on, because typically it's not just Parkinson's. There's other conditions that are happening, like comorbidities, other things happening. So the palliative care can kind of get that big picture of things. Okay. So we will quickly go into some of these end of life. A death doula is very amazing resource. So a death doula also can be called a death midwife or an end of life doula. Um, all of these things pretty much talk about the same role. It is a person that is going to support someone in a non-medical way uh, in the dying process and tending to grief. And this is before death and sometimes after death. Death doulas are trained in supporting people and the people left around after death stuff. So some of the things that death doulas can do are help fill unmet needs, and they are trained to identify gaps in care. So a hospice has a team, but they don't maybe have a lot of time, and so a death doula can come in and kind of fill in the gaps, or they can, even before hospice, so early on, a death doula can come to help, do advanced care planning facilitation. They can, help with grief, an anticipatory grief, that you have as you're going through, a progressive illness. And then as things progress, doulas can, have compassionate conversations with the individual, but then also all the people around that individual, providing education, helping people prepare. And end of life doulas are not something that can bill insurance at this time. So a lot of times they are private pay, or there are various nonprofits that can provide death doulas through grant funded initiatives, especially in rural areas in Oregon. We have Peaceful Presence that provides 30 hours of doula work to rural people that are lower income or like in need. We have death doulas that will do sliding scale. And so the people that can pay them kind of make up for the ones that they volunteer towards. We also have a few hospices around Oregon that actually employ doulas as part of their team. So you have to kind of do your due diligence to seek out. And Peaceful Presence has a statewide directory that they're developing right now. So we will provide you with a link to that directory to find what the end of life resources are for your area. Okay. So you want to make sure that you interview the doula because there is not all doulas are not trained in all of the different things. So some might have more focus or passion about advanced care planning, or, like supporting people with legacy projects and, fulfilling, like what do you want before you die? Like, who do we want to try to make up with? What are the things that we need to like kind of spiritually um, uh, think about and go through before we die? So there's a lot of different things that people do. So you need to ask them questions like, are they in tune with your beliefs, values, and your preferences? Do they have a skill set and service offering you're looking for? And then what training have they gone through? There's lots of different trainings that people can get a certificate of completion through. So just asking them, what they've been through. So aid in dying, we have death with dignity and medical aid in dying, same thing. And then voluntary stopping eating and drinking, which is short VSED is what we call it. So death with dignity, Oregon was the first state to legalize medical aid in dying. Qualifications are you must be physically present in Oregon when you take the medication to end your life. You can be a non-resident, but you have to come to Oregon and get the approval and go through the process and stay in Oregon, take the medicine in Oregon, and die in Oregon. So you can't take it and then go back to your home state. You have to be 18 years or older. You have to have mental capacity for making healthcare decisions. You have to have a terminal illness with a life expectancy of 6 months or less, and that is determined by 2 physicians. And then you have to have the ability to self-administer the medications. So the easiest way, or the most often used way, is by swallowing. Someone can hold a cup and a person can sip through a straw, but you have to be the person to administer. If you aren't able to swallow, you can either utilize a feeding tube, and you have to be the one to make the act of pushing the plunger to administer the medication. Then there also is the ostomy rectal catheter, which again, you have to be the one that pushes the plunger. So people get really creative for people who have like ALS and different things. So this is something that your support team and different organizations that support people around medical aid and dying, like End of Life Choices Oregon. They have volunteers and they will help you figure out how to do the whole process. And they will also kind of make it known when it's not possible, which is really difficult. But there are times when people, sometimes there's only a window of when a person can self-administer. And once it gets past that, then unfortunately, people aren't able to go through that process. So requirements of the law, an attending physician who writes the prescription, a consulting physician who verifies the diagnosis and the prognosis, and then 2 oral requests for death with dignity with a minimum of 15 days between. So it will take 15 days. And there is a written request for life-ending medications. So these are all the things that you kind of have to do to go through the process. There is a way to expedite it, and it takes 48 hours, but only if a physician feels like you would not survive that 15-day waiting period. That's the only reason why you could get it expedited to a 48-hour process rather than a 15-day wait period. Okay. Voluntary stopping eating and drinking, which is shortened VSED. It's also sometimes known as terminal or life-ending fasting. You cannot do this alone. You need to have a care team 24/7 during this process. And so not everyone is eligible for medical aid in dying, especially people with dementia and people with Parkinson's, who, when you get to that 6-month or less time period to become eligible, oftentimes you don't have maybe the decision-making capacity and you don't have the physical ability to self-administer. And so even if your swallowing is difficult, which with Parkinson's, that is one of the symptoms, even if you can't swallow safely, you can still do the other self-administer ways of the feeding tube or the rectal administration. Basically you are stopping food, stopping drinking, and it is typically an average length of time once you stop drinking water is about 10 days, is what the process takes. And so this is something that it's basically dehydration is what happens. And hospices can be supportive of this. And a death doula is a good person to have on board to kind of help coordinate all of it during the process. And it is not considered suicide and will not affect life insurance because the underlying cause of death is recorded as the cause of death for VSED and for the medical aid in dying. So when the death certificate comes, it doesn't say medical aid in dying. It says what the underlying cause of death was. Okay, so don't have time to go through this, but you will get all these things. So this is really some questions about our relation to death and our own mortality. So I'll leave this with you to go through on your own. But really it's talking about our shift from relational to institutional death and the work and the questions that we can ask ourselves to kind of understand our relationship to mortality. And there's some different questions that you can ask yourself and your partner or your family together, or just on your own, talking about different cultural beliefs that shape our grief and death experiences. One of the things is grief. What our culture, our dominating culture tells us is that grief has, stages, and that one after the other. And really, our true experience is this messy, chaotic tangle where it's not stages of grief, but it's more expressions of grief or grief reactions that we have. So it's not linear, it's not tidy. Kubler-Ross's stages of grief were actually for someone who is told that they have a terminal illness and they're dying. It's not something to be applied to just anyone's grief experience. And that's where we've gotten it wrong. We've told, like, it's a story that, well, we have to think about the stages of grief, when it's actually the stages of what a person will typically go through when they're told that they have a terminal illness. Okay, so lots of reflections. And then death positivity, how we can talk openly about death with friends and family, sharing our wishes. We have death cafes that are all over the state and the world that we can take part in. Different things of hosting conversations and reading books and documentaries. I got some suggestions in here. And then it's not glorification. It is just allowing for space to talk about death and for grief that is not only during crisis. We want to do it regularly. Okay, so that is it. I have lots of resources, and have different forums, links, and I will stop sharing and we can do some Q&A. That was a lot of information in a short time.
Thank you, Angela, for
Yeah,
sharing your expertise and guiding us through this important topic and conversation.
yeah.
Uh, Folks out there, please, if you have questions, put them in the chat. Right now, we do have some written questions from you were asked, there was an opportunity to ask questions on Eventbrite. So shall we go over a couple of those written questions? Or did you decide that the questions were answered during the presentation?
I think a lot of the questions were answered during the presentation, but if people have any further ones, go ahead and put those in the chat. I see that there is one in the
Hmm.
chat. So
Okay.
Yvonne is asking, what are organs' disposition for disposing of human ashes? So you basically can dispose on private property. You can scatter ashes. If you are going to a public place, uh, it's not legal, but it's one of those like cultural things where as long as you don't do it in a like public or in an area that it shouldn't be spread, then no one's really going to bother you. But you aren't going to be granted permission to like go out into the national forest by the National Forest Service and scatter ashes. So it's yeah, it's one of those things that I think people just do. It's like, I'm just going to ask forgiveness afterwards, but legally, you're not supposed to spread ashes anywhere except private. And then also, when you can intern ashes, at a cemetery, and pay the fee for doing that. But you can intern ashes on your private land or anyone else's private land, and you don't have to like disclose that necessarily.
Okay, thank you. Very thoughtful question. Let's see. It looks
Oh,
like we have
someone
one
just
more
popped up.
question.
It says, are there specific clues as to when it is time to transition from disease management to palliative care to hospice care? As in, is this a family-driven decision as well as a health provider? So it should be a shared decision, and um, we have shared decision-making guides and guidelines, and doctors are often trained in shared decision-making discussions. And so disease management is a part of palliative care. So you can go into palliative care at any time. As long as you have an illness that is impacting your quality of life and it is life limiting, um, you can go into hospice or palliative care. And then once you're in palliative care, hospice is when you are not seeking any curative treatments. So hospice won't allow for curative treatments. So 6 months or less. So once your doctor feels like you're 6 months or less, you could go into hospice care. And then you have to stop any sort of curative treatments. If there is medication that you're taking that improves your quality of life and comfort, you can still take those medications. And so Libby just put Parkinson's medications are not considered curative. So you can continue those regular medications for as long as you can. There might come a time when you have to figure out how to administer that medication if you're not able to swallow and different ways. So the hospice team, along with your Parkinson's care team, they can communicate with each other and yeah.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Uh, it's almost 7:30, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up our evening here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you taking advantage of our educational programs. We're very appreciative of your support. If you want to know more about Parkinson's resources, about our support groups, educational programming, our helpline, please connect with us. We have our website, our number, everything. We love to help, and that is our mission to help families and patients with Parkinson's with education, support. And so, again, thank you very much, and we appreciate your support. Bye bye.